Hey there, weavers. Thanks for joining me tonight. This is Grace with Tangled Webs Weaving. And tonight I wanted to talk to you about how to plan a double weave, double width project. So the project that I have planned is a blanket that is for a queen size bed, and the finished dimension is planned to be 98 inches wide by 110 inches long. Now, my loom is only 56-inch weaving width. So I have two options. I can weave two panels that are about 47, 48 inches wide and piece them together, which is perfectly acceptable. Or I can weave the blanket in a double weave, double width. And that's what I plan to do. So I wanted to first talk a little bit about what double weave is. Basically, double weave is the process of weaving two layers of fabric, one on top of the other at the same time. Now, they can be unjoined, so you have two separate panels. You might want to use that in a case where you're piecing together two pieces of fabric for a blanket, or if you're making drapes and you want them to be the exact same pattern, the same length, everything exactly the same. That's a good way to ensure that. However, you can also weave them joined, and there's three different ways to have them joined. One is to have them interlaced to where the top layer and the bottom layer exchange places in certain areas, and this is called stitching. So this is a sampler that I did of double weave, and there's several instances of where it's stitched, and you can see where the blue comes to the top and is interlaced with the black. That is, they're stitched together. This is not stitched together. This is a color and weave sample. But this rug that I did here is an example of having it stitched double weave. So it is two layers thick, and in between where it's stitched together, you can actually pull the two layers apart and feel the space in there. So those are just a couple examples of having them stitched. The other way that they can be joined is to have them join on both selvages. So basically what this does is creates a tube. So let's take, for example, this piece of cloth, and let's say I wove this in double weave, and I have a fold line on this side and I have a fold line on this side, and you would have a sleeve. And this is great for making like pillow coverings. There's a lot of different techniques to double weave, and too many to go into tonight. But the third option of joining is to join on one side, one selvage, and have the other selvage unjoined. And what that does is creates a fold line. When you take the cloth off the loom, you can open it up and you have a piece of cloth that is twice the size or twice the width of what you wove. So it's really cool. It's kind of magic. So what you would do is you're weaving something this size, and then when you take it off the loom, you open it up and you have that. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So pretty much this technique of translating a draft into a double weave, double width project is the same for regardless of if it's joined or not, or if it's joined on both sides or one side or no sides. There's some differences in the tie-up, and there's some differences in how you manipulate your shuttles. If you're doing two separate pieces of cloth that aren't joined at all, obviously you need 2 shuttles. So, all right, so let's see if I forgot anything. Oh, and this process, this double weave, can be used for pretty much any weave structure. The only thing that I'm not sure that you could do is pick up, but actually that's not true either, because in my sample, this is pickup. Oh, let's see if you can see that a little better. There we go. You can see that this is pickup and it's on the other side. And the thing with the pickup though is it's a stitched joined weave. So you can't separate the 2 layers from each other. But so you can do pickup. All right. Let's see. So when you're planning a double weave project, the number of shafts that you use for each layer is half the total shafts that you need, because what you're doing is you're weaving one layer with half the shafts of the loom and the other layer with the other half of the shafts of the loom. So if you have a 4-shaft loom, you can weave 2 layers using 2 shafts each. So you're limited to plain weave and plain weave derivatives, but plain weave is often not very plain. So there's a lot of options out there. The more shafts that you have, the more variations that you can do. Basically, for every, so if you have an 8-shaft loom, you can do any 4-shaft or less structure. If you have 12 shafts, you can do any 6-shaft or less structure. You're not limited to doing the same structure on both layers, and you're not limited to using all of your shafts for the project. So I have a 12-shaft loom. I'm going to be doing a 4-shaft structure on 2 layers. So I'm only going to be using 8 shafts. I did do at one point, several years ago, a structure that was triple layered and on an 8-shaft loom. The way that I did that was the top layer, it was a 3-paneled tablecloth. So the top layer, which was the middle panel, used 4 shafts and was a huck pattern. The 2 outer panels were plain weave panels, and so they only used 2 shafts each. So I was able to use 2 shafts for each of those panels, which is 4 shafts, and then 4 shafts for the middle, and that was 8 shafts. So basically, the way I wove that was like this. So we had 3 layers. So you wove it from here and around, and then back. It was a nightmare, to be perfectly honest. It was a 20 ends per inch project for each layer. There were 3 layers, so it was 60 ends per inch. I used 22 to Caudelin, and it was a bear. I had a jack loom at the time, and my poor little jack loom just did not fare well for it. But I got it finished, and I would show it to you, but I actually donated it to a charity auction. So you're not limited to having the same structure on all the layers. But when you're doing a 2-layer folded cloth, if you don't have the same structure on both layers, then you're going to have a different structure on one of the layers when you open up your cloth, which could look cool, could look kind of strange. But whatever you want to do you can. Let's see. So, oh yeah, I'm going to be using a basic straight draw 2-2 twill. So it is going to be pretty easy to translate. And so that's why I thought that this would be a good exercise to do a live feed on. A couple of things that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about a folded cloth that we're weaving. So let's take this piece of paper, for example. This is a twill design. It's the same on both sides, like your piece of cloth would be. So we're going to fold it like this, and we're going to weave it like that, okay? Then when we're done weaving it, we're going to open it up. So look how the directional element of the twill acts. It's when you fold that under, the top becomes the bottom and it reverses. So you can see it a lot better if I do this. So on the front top of the structure of the cloth, the twill is running this way, but on the bottom structure, it's running the opposite way. So that tells us that not only is the bottom piece of cloth upside down, but it's backwards too. So we need to keep that in mind when we're designing our threading draft. So what would happen if you didn't do that? If you just threaded a straight twill on 8 shafts and you wove 2 layers, right? The way that they're supposed to be woven. Well, you take it off the loom and you unfold it, and this is what you get. So that's not a bad thing, but if it's not what you're expecting and it's not what you wanted, it's a bad thing. So that's what you end up with. So it might be kind of cool, but be warned of what you're going to get. All right, so let's see. Yeah. So if we need to translate a 4-4 or a 4-shaft 2-2 twill to the double weave. So we need to rewrite the threading. We need to rewrite the tie-up, and we need to rewrite the treadling. Oh wait, we need to rewrite the whole thing. So let's do that. So the first thing to understand, let me get my visual aids here. All right, I'm hoping you guys can all see that. All right, well, I think it'll work. I might be able to tilt the camera down a little bit. Oh. All right, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So a 2-2 twill is with a straight threading is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is our threading draft, and I've got 3 iterations here because we're going to write this out 3 different times to show the steps. So I've got these 4 shafts are going to be the top of my cloth. These 4 shafts are going to be my bottom cloth. Okay, so we're going to write out our threading draft just like we normally would on the bottom 4 shafts 1 through 4. Now, because I'm doing a very simple draft and it just goes straight across, I don't need to write out the entire draft all the way to the middle fold line. If you're doing a more complicated draft or one that's not symmetrical, then it's a good idea to write out the entire draft all the way until you hit the middle of your project, which is your fold line. You write it out on the first 4 shafts because that's your top cloth. Then you take and you write out the second half of your pattern, which is the bottom of the cloth, on here, the top 4 shafts, 5 through 8. But because I'm doing a very simple symmetrical structure, I don't need to write it all out. So we're just going to do one repeat. When I write out the initial repeat, I am going to skip a thread between each. I'm going to leave a blank thread. So let's do that. So we go 1, and then I skip a thread, 2, skip a thread, 3, skip a thread, 4. Okay, then I start over and I come down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now we're going to create a fold line right here. There's our fold line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this because this is my cloth that's on the bottom. So instead of writing it here, I need to write it up here. So let's do that back down here. 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, I did that wrong. All right. That's what they make whiteout for. All right. There. All right. So this is my bottom. This is my top. And we'll label these so that I don't forget again. And top. Okay. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Again, we have our fold line. Okay. Now, I'm going to kind of bring this closer because this will make it a little bit easier. So we've got this written out. This is our top of our cloth. This is the bottom of our cloth. And this is where we're going to fold it. So on our threading draft, we need to do just that. We need to fold it. So this is basically what we have. We've got our 8 threads there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this along that fold line. And I'm going to see if I can hold this up to a light, and I don't have a light that maybe I can do it with this light. Okay. So I'm going to hold this up, and hopefully you can see the marks that I made on the other side showing through there. That's where our marks need to be. They intersect with the blank spaces that we left in here, and that's why we left them. So basically what you're going to be doing is writing it. So the top of the cloth gets written the same way, but when you fold it, the bottom cloth gets written backwards. So 1 goes here, which now becomes 5, then 6, 7, 8. So this, is what our draft looks like. This is what our threading draft will look like. Have I lost everybody already? Let's see. So Sandra asks, let's see. So Sandra asks, how do you get something so tight there are no gaps? I'm not sure I understand what your question is, Sandra. There's a heart at it, so I can't read. Okay, well, hopefully I can clarify that question, Sandra, and answer that for you. So let's continue on. Let's see. All right, so hopefully this makes sense. How do you get how do you get the folded line tight so it's not loose? That, Sandra, is actually quite the opposite problem. Typically, and I was going to explain some of that at the end, but I can address it right now. So the fold line, if you think when you're weaving along and just a normal single flat piece of cloth, you have draw in on each selvage. It's natural, it's expected. So what the problem is if you have that draw in on the side that is folding, then you get your threads get all bunched up, and they actually can be too tight typically. And so there are a couple key ideas to help alleviate that. You can thread in a mercerized cotton along with the last 2 threads to be pulled out after it's woven, and that will help. Basically, it kind of creates more of a gap, and then when you take the mercerized cotton thread out, it will leave a gap, and it can things can kind of move around and fill in. You can use a piece of fishing line along the fold. Again, as almost kind of like a floating selvage, but it's removed after the fact, and it helps keep you from pulling the yarn too tight when you weave around that fold. You can, typically what I've done is I actually space out the last couple dents a little bit looser set than the rest of the project. So if you have, you know, a 10 dent reed and you've got 4 per dent, then maybe put in 2 per dent in the last 2 dents. That will kind of spread it out and create a little extra space. So I hope that that answers your question, Sandra. All right, so if I haven't lost everybody yet, I'm still working on it. Let's move on to the tie-up. So here again, we have our draft, and we'll just go ahead and put in, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 8, 7, 6, and 5. Okay. So again, this is the bottom, and this is the top. Oops. And I think I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this a little bit closer. Hopefully you guys can see it better. So this is your bottom cloth. This is your top cloth. And this is your threading draft right here. Here is your tie-up. On your tie-up, it's the same thing. This is your bottom, or this is your top cloth. This is your bottom cloth. The tie-up, though, controls this, controls your top cloth. This controls your bottom cloth. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our draft just like we normally would for the top cloth, because it's a straight 2-2 twill. But we're going to write it in the lower left-hand quadrant. So we're going to say 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 4, 1. Nothing is up here because we're only weaving our top cloth. Now to weave the bottom cloth, remember this, the bottom cloth is upside down. I did forget to say one thing. This whole concept for the tie-up is assuming a rising shed loom or a countermarch loom, or I believe it probably would also be a counterbalance loom. If you have a sinking shed loom, the tie-up is going to be just reversed. Okay. And it wouldn't have to be because you would just be weaving the top cloth would be woven upside down and the bottom cloth would be woven right side up. So when you open it up, it would still work. But so because the bottom cloth is going to be woven upside down, we need to tie up the opposite shafts on each treadle. So a normal cloth would be here. That would be a normal tie-up. So what we're going to tie up is the opposite. 3, 4, 4, 1, 1, 2, and 2, 3. Oh, but actually it's 7, 8, 8, 5, 5. Weave this. The two layers would be interlocked because the way that we weave particular cloth is you weave the top layer and then you weave the bottom layer and then you weave the bottom layer back and then the top layer back. Okay, so when we're weaving the bottom layer, we need to move the top layer out of the way. In order to do that, we need to raise all the shafts on shafts 1 through 4. So we do that. Okay, so there is your tie-up. Now, the problem that some people experience is when you are trying to lift 6 of your 8 shafts at the same time, it can get really heavy. On my jack loom, it was virtually impossible. My counterbalance loom or my countermarch loom seems to be a lot easier. But if you have a jack loom or a table loom, you can do this on a table loom. If you have a jack loom or a table loom, you can add another treadle to only raise this top layer. You can tie these up just like this, or you can eliminate this tie up and press 2 treadles. But either way, if you use the secondary treadle, pushing 2 treadles, so you push the top layer treadle and then you push your pattern treadle for the bottom layer. And that will just make it a little bit easier to raise all those shafts and to hold them up there. Okay, so I think that is it for that part. Let's see. Yeah. Now we get to move on to the treadling. So, all right, so here we've got our draft again. We've got 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 1. And then we have 7, 8, 8, 5, 5, 6, and 6, 7. And this is 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. So as I said before, when we're weaving, we weave the top layer, then we turn the corner and we weave the bottom layer, and then we turn the corner and we weave the bottom layer again, turn the corner and weave the top layer. Okay. So this is our fold line. This is a selvage, and this is a selvage. I'm right-handed, so I tend to start my throws. Yeah, Madison, it's really hard to get a clean shed, and I have a little bit of a hack for you on that aspect uh, later on. Um, I'll show you a little gimmick that I use because yes, if you don't get a clean shed and one of those threads is hanging down and you catch it, it will tie your two pieces of cloth together. And then when you take it off the loom, you go to open it up, it doesn't open, and you have to fix it, which you can do. But yeah, that is definitely a problem. Keeping a good tension on your warp is really key. And I think that that's one of the reasons that the countermarch loom works better for double weave, because I am able to keep a better tension on the loom than I was able to on my particular jack loom. So keeping in mind that this is weaving the top part of the cloth, this is weaving the bottom part of the cloth. Let's go top, 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 top. This is weaving bottom, 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 bottom. Okay. So a normal 4 or 2 2 12 is just 1 2 3 4, and that's what we would treadle, right? Can you see that? I think I need to move over a little bit. There we go. So if you're going to weave 1 2 3 4, you need to weave this on both layers. But what you need to do is you need to weave top, bottom, bottom, top, top, bottom, bottom, top. Okay, so you're going to weave top 1, bottom 1, bottom 2, top 2, top 3, bottom 3, bottom 4, top 4. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to weave top 1, bottom 1, bottom 2, top 2, top 3, bottom 3, bottom 3, bottom 4, oops, and then top 4. So there is our treadling. So now we've rewritten the threading, we have rewritten the tie-up, and we have rewritten the treadling. Now, who wants extra credit? Okay. This actually isn't bad for treadling. Ergonomically, I prefer a walking treadle, but this is totally doable. With my countermarch loom, the treadles are about this wide and my feet are about this wide. So I don't like to have my feet right next to each other when I'm treadling. So this actually is not too bad. But if you wanted to be able to remember it a little bit easier, you could do a straight treadle where you just did 1 through 8 over and over. Or if you wanted to do like I do and have a walking treadle where you treadle, this one, so left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, then you can do that by rearranging the treadles. Now, the way that I like to do that, and this really has no bearing on, yeah, Sarita, it is really magical. It's so fun when you open up the cloth, and or even when you're weaving, and because you need to check fairly often to make sure that you still have two pieces of cloth, because believe me, I have gotten mixed up in my treadling, and I have looked down and like 3 feet back, I wove two picks that tied the whole thing together, and it was painful. But it is magical. It's a lot of fun to open that cloth up and say, "Ooh, I made something twice as big as what I should have." So changing the treadling sequence around really has nothing to do with weaving double weave, but because we're here, I thought that I would explain it. So the way that I like to do it is I have my treadling written out, and what I will do is I will write up here then which treadle I am going to be using in the order that I'm going to be using them. So I'm going to be using this one first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. Now, with this information, I can translate this quite easily to, say, a straight treadle like this. So here is the tie-up that we just did with the treadling sequence. And I just didn't want to rewrite the whole thing. But what we can do is we can now translate this to, say, a straight treadle. So I'm going to do this one first, this one second. So I'm going to do 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then third, I'm going to do 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then fourth is over here, which is 2, 3. Fifth is 3, 4. Sixth is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Seventh is 7, 8, or 7, 6, sorry. 4, 3, 2, 1. And 8 is 4, 1. So now, in just a matter of a couple minutes, I was able to translate this treadling into this treadling. So let's do the same thing for a walking treadle. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to do this one first. So that's 1, 2. This one is second. So that's 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one is third, which is 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one's fourth, which is 2, 3. This one's fifth, which is 3, 4, 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6 is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 7 is 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. And our last one, 8, is 4, 1. And so now you've got your walking treadle. So it's going to be top, bottom, bottom, top, top, bottom, bottom, top. So that is the key to remember in weaving double weave, weaving top, bottom, bottom, top, top, bottom, bottom, top. That is your mantra. Sandra, I have a jack loom with 10 treadles. I use one of the spare treadles to list the top. Yes, I find so putting the top layer on a separate treadle makes it a lot easier. Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, you cannot do that with a countermarch loom. And I don't believe that you can do it with a counterbalance loom either. You can only do it with a jack loom or a table loom or a loom that is doesn't have treadles. The countermarch loom for you tie up the treadles such that, or the shafts to the treadles such that you raise the shafts that you want to be raised and the rest of the shafts are lowered. So it's just kind of the nature of a countermarch loom. But it precludes you from pushing 2 treadles at the same time. I don't believe that well, I think there might be a way that you can kind of get around it, but you need some other little piece of equipment, I think. But if somebody knows of that little piece of equipment, let me know. Okay, so when you're threading the reed, and I touched on this before, when you're threading the reed, it's pretty important that you keep the layers together. So, well, I shouldn't say together. What am I trying to say? So when you're threading the reed, you should thread at least 2 threads per dent. You thread an upper thread and a lower thread. It's probably even good to thread 4 threads per dent, 2 for the upper and 2 for the lower. It just kind of helps balance things out and keeps reed marks from happening. But like I said, when you are near that fold line, to help keep the draw in from making that fold line too dense, because think of it, if you've got so here's my piece of cloth, and my selvage here has draw in. I mean, it's going to happen. So if you have that density on the fold, not only do you have the density on the top edge of that fold, you've got it on the bottom edge of that fold too. So it's doubly dense. So to counteract that, you can use a piece of fishing line threaded in the same dent as this last thread. And when you go you treat it like a floating selvage. You go over it on one pass, and when you come back, you go under it. The other option is when you're threading the last couple threads, put in a similar sized string of like a mercerized cotton, something that's slippery, but is a similar size to what you are weaving with, and put it in the same heddle and the same dent as the last two threads on this fold line. So one of the top threads and one of the bottom threads. And what that will do, so you put it in the same heddle and the same dent as the thread that you're weaving your warp with, and it will create a little extra space. Excuse me. Then when you take the project off the loom and you open it up, you can pull out that mercerized thread or that slippery thread, and it will create room for the threads to kind of move and make this fold line so it isn't so dense. The other thing to be critically aware of is not creating that draw in especially on the fold side. So if you are consistent and careful about not pulling on your weft, putting your weft at a good angle, beating on an open shed, those things will all help in making that fold line so it doesn't draw in. If it does draw in, you can, and sometimes when you wet finish the item, it will kind of help move things around a little bit and push things out. One of the blankets that I did, one of the first blankets that I did, the fold line was awful. It was a huck pattern, and I had the huck pattern going over that fold, which was a mistake because it ended up being inconsistent. And I was able to remove some threads, along the whole length of it, and create a little extra space, and it didn't throw the pattern off too much. Only I knew that it was a problem. The person that actually got the blanket as a gift didn't know that it was anything that it shouldn't have been. But being consistent about how you turn that corner is very key. Let's see. So other things. Yeah, beating on an open shed, that will help your draw in regardless. I've considered using a temple. That could possibly help, but I'm not a big fan of temples unless I'm weaving a rug, and I pretty much have to use a temple for that. But yeah, so I'm not sure if you guys are completely overwhelmed with the information right now, but if you want, I can demonstrate translating another weave structure that is a little more complicated, just to kind of show you that it is possible. This is it's an M&W weave structure, and because my graph paper is not big enough, I had to do it sideways. So let's see if I can take this off and turn my graph paper around. So if you have any questions Be sure to post them while I am doing this part. Uh-oh. Okay. All right, we're gonna have to see if I can. I don't think I can do that, but let's see if I can tilt my camera back down. All right. I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but basically, this is a M&W draft so there's 2 iterations of it here. So here's the M, here's the W, and then here is the M on the upper shafts and the W here. And I just wanted to show you how that translates when you fold it. And you can totally do this. And what I have done is I actually take it on my fold line, and let me see, where is the fold line? Right there. So here's my fold line. And I actually folded it and then kind of peeked under the edge, and then you could see what it is. But because I've done this ahead of time, and it's really not that difficult if you think about it. So if you just write out the pattern on every other thread. Okay, so there's my M, and here's my W. Two, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I'm going to write the same pattern out, but I'm going to reverse it. And for the 4s, I'm going to substitute 8s. For the 3s, I'm substituting 7s. The 2s get 6s, and the 1s get 5s. So we're going to just write it out backwards. 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we start back down at the bottom. 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, well, that wasn't right. 1, 2, 3. Oh, see, I already screwed it up. 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's right. Okay. 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7, 6, 5. So there you can see we have our M and our W, and then we have our M and our W. I've lost a couple more. Oh well. So this was just trying to demonstrate that you can pretty much any structure that you want, you can do in double weave. You can do twills, you can do overshot, you can do, if it requires a tabby, the only difference with requiring a tabby is you need a couple more treadles. And if you have an 8-shaft loom, then you typically have 2 more treadles than what you need for just the standard tie-up. So you can do overshot. You can do anything that needs a tabby. If you only have the 10 treadles, then you don't have the ability to tie, and you do a tabby, then you don't have the ability to tie up that extra treadle to help lift the shafts. But yeah, so that is your limitation. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoyed the explanation. I hope it was clear enough that you guys can go off and do this. So the project that I explained here and that I'm planning, I will be posting videos of the entire process. So, follow along. And if you have questions, be sure to post them. I probably won't do another live stream related to this topic, but I might if I run into a problem that I think you guys might be, benefit from me solving. I'll definitely throw it out there. And so please do follow along and watch the magic happen as I weave this. Oh, one person had a question about the getting a clean shed. So here's my little hat. And I'm not sure if I've posted this in a video already, but I might have. So this is called an endoscope, and it's usually used in the automotive industry, but you can, shadow weave. I think it might. I've only done like a couple shadow weave projects. I'll look into that. Peggy, and I'll let you know. I don't see why it wouldn't. Actually, so, all right. You got me distracted, Peggy. So this is called an endoscope. And what it is it's a little camera that has lights, LED lights around it to help light it up. And I've got this mounted on my reed to look down my reed at my shed. And this hooks up to my computer, my laptop, and it basically gives me a picture of my shed. So when I'm doing double weave, this thing is a lifesaver because I can see my shed, I can see if it's clear, I can see if anything is hanging down. So they're on Amazon. They're anywhere between, I don't know, I think $20 and $40. Some of them come with their own little camera now, or I'm sorry, a little screen. So for like $50, it comes with a little 4-inch screen. You can mount it to your castle or whatever. Anyways, this thing is invaluable for doing double weave. This also is invaluable for doing double weave. This book this is the Double Weave Bible. Jennifer Moore is an absolute great teacher. And when I was weaving the triple wide cloth, I was having such issues with tension. And I actually reached out to her and asked her questions, and she responded to me. It was so great. Such great information in this book. So I'll post a link to it on Amazon. I'll also post a link to the endoscope on Amazon in the comments to this live feed. So when it uploads to YouTube and saves, you can rewatch it, but it'll have description, and I'll post links to both these items in it. Let's see. Shadowy. Oh yeah, I was gonna look. I think there might be a shadow weave project in Jennifer's book. I don't know. I think that you can. I mean, it works with block weaves and all different kinds of weave structures. So I don't see why it wouldn't work with shadow weave. But I will look into that and let you know, Peggy. I'll post it in the comments. So thank you all for joining me tonight. I really hope that you got something out of this, and that it wasn't too confusing. It can be very confusing, but once you kind of get into it and you start working with it, it's really magical weave structure. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you guys have a great weekend and happy weaving. Thanks.